Detective Miles Corbin hated coming back to Shadowbrook. Every winding road, every weathered storefront, every face carried a weight of memory he'd spent 2 decades trying to outrun. But when his retired partner, Frank Miller, called him with that urgent, gravelly voice, Miles knew he couldn't refuse. Frank, bless his stubborn heart, had never let go of the Shadowbrook murders of '98. Another one, Miles, Frank had rasped over the phone. Same MO exactly. Young woman, mid-20s, found near the old logging trails. No witnesses, no struggle. Just gone. Miles felt a familiar cold dread coil in his gut. 25 years. 25 years since 3 young women had vanished from Shadowbrook without a trace, their bodies later found in ritualistic poses, a single, perfectly preserved white rose clutched in each hand. The case had broken the town, and it had broken Miles, a rookie detective then who had failed to catch a ghost. Shadowbrook hadn't changed much. Still clinging precariously to the Oregon coast, it was a town built on timber and fishing, now slowly dying as both industries dwindled. The salt-laced air carried the scent of pine and decay, a fitting aroma for a town that seemed perpetually stuck in mourning. The new victim was named Lily Thorne, a bright-eyed barista who had only moved to Shadowbrook 6 months prior, seeking a quieter life. Miles found her parents shell-shocked and hollow-eyed in their small, tidy living room. "She loved it here," Lily's mother whispered, clutching a framed photo of her daughter. Said the ocean calmed her. She felt safe. Miles felt a pang of guilt. Safe. No one was truly safe in Shadowbrook, not when the shadows still held their secrets. His first stop was the old police station, a cramped, outdated building that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Sheriff Brody, a gruff man who looked like he'd aged a decade in a year, met him at the door. "Corbin. Didn't think you'd ever show your face here again." Brody's tone was laced with resentment. Miles understood. He'd left Shadowbrook in disgrace, the unsolved murders a stain on his record. Frank called. Said it was identical. Brody nodded, running a hand over his thinning hair. "Almost. The rose, it was different this time. A red one." Miles felt a jolt. A red rose. The original killer had always left white roses. A subtle shift or a copycat? Or had the original killer simply evolved? He delved into the old case files. Yellowed reports, faded crime scene photos, witness statements that led nowhere. Elara Vance, a free-spirited artist. Clara Jenkins, a quiet librarian. And Sarah Lindstrom, a college student home for the summer. All beautiful, all gone, leaving behind only the chilling calling card of the white rose. The media had sensationalized it, dubbing the killer the Rose Collector. Frank, now a frail, trembling man with a fierce glint in his eyes, joined him in the makeshift incident room. He knew the terrain, Miles. Knew these woods like the back of his hand. And he was careful. Too careful. No forced entry, no signs of struggle, no witnesses. Just like Lily Thorne, Miles murmured, flipping through the new reports. How did he get them? Frank pointed to a faded map of Shadowbrook. They were all found within a 5-mile radius of the old lighthouse. Remote spots but accessible by a few specific trails. Trails only locals would really know about. Miles looked at the map, his eyes tracing the familiar lines of the town. The lighthouse, perched on the highest cliff, a beacon of light in a town shrouded in darkness. And Silas Blackwood, the lighthouse keeper, a man who had been there through every single disappearance. Silas had been a suspect in '98 briefly. A loner, a man with a penchant for solitude and an unsettling intensity in his eyes. But he had an alibi, flimsy but sufficient. He was on duty, alone in the lighthouse, a fortress of stone and glass. What about Silas? Miles asked, voicing the thought that had always lingered in the back of his mind. Frank sighed. Always a strange one. But he loved Elara Vance. They used to meet by the cliffs. He was broken when she disappeared. Love. Or obsession. Miles knew how thin that line could be. He decided to visit Silas. The lighthouse was a formidable structure, battered by decades of storms, its lamp casting a steady rhythmic beam across the churning sea. Silas, his face a roadmap of wrinkles, greeted him with a weary nod. "Detective Corbin. Heard you were back. The past always catches up, doesn't it?" Silas's voice was gravelly, like stones tumbling in the surf. He offered Miles a cup of lukewarm coffee, his eyes, the color of sea glass, watching him intently. "We have another victim, Silas. Lily Thorne." A flicker of pain or recognition crossed Silas's face. "Poor girl. This town, it eats the good ones." "You were a suspect in '98, Miles stated, watching for a reaction. Silas chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Always the loner, always the oddball. Convenient, isn't it? But I was here. Every night. Alone. He gestured to the vast empty space around them. This is my world. Just the light and the dark. Miles felt an unsettling chill. Silas's solitude was absolute. It was impossible to imagine him leaving the lighthouse without someone noticing. And yet, there was something in his eyes, a depth of sorrow and knowledge that Miles couldn't ignore. He pressed on. The first victim, Elara Vance. You knew her well.
Silas's gaze softened. A rare, fleeting emotion. Elara, she was like a wildflower. Too beautiful for this harsh coast. We used to talk down by the cliffs. She understood the sea, felt its power. Did she ever talk about anyone else? A secret admirer? Someone who might have been fixated on her. Silas's jaw tightened. Men were always drawn to Elara. She had a light about her. But no one who seemed dangerous. He paused, then looked Miles directly in the eye. You won't find him, you know. He's like the fog itself. Here one moment, gone the next. Leaves no trace. Miles left the lighthouse feeling more confused than before. Silas was either a master manipulator or a man haunted by genuine grief. The old keeper's words, leaves no trace, echoed ominously in his mind. Miles knew that small towns harbored long memories and bitter secrets. He began to dig into the lives of the original victims, hoping to find a common thread, a connection beyond their shared fate. Elara Vance, the artist, had been known for her captivating personality and her fierce independence. Clara Jenkins, the librarian, was quiet and studious, a creature of habit. Sarah Lindstrom, the college student, was vivacious and popular. 3 very different women, all drawn into the same deadly snare. He revisited the few leads from '98. A blurry eyewitness account of a dark sedan seen near one of the crime scenes. A vague description of a man with a distinctive limp. None of it had ever amounted to anything. Frank, fueled by 2 decades of obsession, had compiled an extensive dossier on every male resident of Shadowbrook who fit even a remote profile. It was a thick binder, overflowing with names, photographs, and speculative theories. We missed something, Miles. Something fundamental, Frank insisted, his trembling finger tracing a faded photograph of a young man. This one, Adam Thorne, Lily's uncle. He was a local back then. About the right age. He even dated Elara Vance briefly. Miles looked at the photo. A handsome young man with an intense gaze. He quickly checked Adam Thorne's current whereabouts. Still in Shadowbrook, running the local bait and tackle shop. Was he ever a serious suspect? Frank shook his head. Briefly. Had an alibi for all 3. Said he was fishing offshore alone during the times of the disappearances. No one could corroborate. Miles felt a prickle of unease. An uncorroborated alibi, a connection to one of the victims, and now a familial link to the new one. He decided to pay Adam Thorne a visit. The bait and tackle shop smelled of brine and old wood. Adam Thorne was a burly man, his face weathered by years on the sea, but his eyes still held a flicker of the intensity from the photograph. He greeted Miles with a polite, if wary, smile. Detective Corbin. Heard you were back in town. Unfortunate circumstances. Miles introduced himself, then came straight to the point. We're re-examining the old cases, Mr. Thorne, in light of Lily's death. You knew Elara Vance, I believe. Adam's smile faltered. Elara was a force of nature. We dated for a while. Yes. It was a long time ago. And you were a suspect in '98. Adam's jaw tightened. A lot of us were suspects, Detective. Small town. When something like that happens, everyone looks at everyone else. He shrugged. I was out on my boat. Fishing. My alibi stands. Alone. Always. That's how I like it. Out on the water. Just me and the sea. Miles studied him. Adam Thorne seemed outwardly calm, but there was a subtle tension in his shoulders, a guardedness in his eyes. How well did you know the other victims? Clara Jenkins? Sarah Lindstrom? Shadowbrook's a small town, Detective. Everyone knows everyone to an extent. Clara was quiet. Sarah was always laughing. Tragic, all of it. Miles felt a sudden intuition. "And Lily, your niece. How close were you?" A shadow passed over Adam's face. Lily was a sweet girl. She came here to get away from the city. I tried to look out for her. He paused, then added, his voice barely audible. I failed. The conversation yielded little concrete evidence, but it cemented a suspicion in Miles's mind. Adam Thorne fit the profile, a local with an intimate knowledge of the town, an uncorroborated alibi, and a connection to both the past and present victims. He asked Brody to pull Adam Thorne's complete history, focusing on anything unusual, any unexplained absences, any strange behavior. Days turned into a grueling blur of interviews and dead ends. Miles felt the suffocating pressure of the unsolved case closing in on him again. The town watched him, a mix of hope and cynicism in their eyes. They wanted answers, but they also expected him to fail, just like he had before. One evening, staring at the map of Shadowbrook, a detail from Silas Blackwood's earlier statement nagged at him. He knew these woods like the back of his hand. He remembered a small, obscure trail that led to a secluded cove, known only to a handful of locals. He'd stumbled upon it once as a child, a hidden gem. Could it be relevant? Miles decided to visit the cove, hoping a change of scenery might spark something. The trail was overgrown, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. He pushed through the thick undergrowth, the only sounds the rustle of leaves and the distant roar of the ocean. As he neared the cove, he saw it. A faint indentation in the soft earth, barely visible, but distinct enough to catch his eye. A shallow depression, as if something heavy had been dragged. And then a small, almost imperceptible glint of color. He knelt down, brushing away the leaves. A single, perfectly preserved white rose petal, slightly discolored with age, lay nestled in the dirt. It was small, delicate, and undeniably real. A shiver ran down his spine. The rose collector. He had found a piece of the puzzle, a fragment from the past. This was a new location, not one of the original discovery sites. Why would a single petal be here? Unless this was a secondary location. A place where the killer prepared his victims, or perhaps a place he frequented. He called for forensics, his heart pounding with a renewed sense of purpose. This could be the break they needed, a physical link to the past, a ghost of a clue that had waited decades to be found. While waiting for the forensics team, Miles explored the area. The cove was beautiful, a crescent of dark sand framed by towering cliffs. He noticed a small, almost invisible cave entrance, partially obscured by dense ferns. A primal curiosity pulled him towards it. He crawled inside, the air immediately growing colder, heavier. The cave was small, damp, and smelled faintly of earth and something else, something metallic and old. He pulled out his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the cave's rough walls. And then, his breath caught in his throat. Etched into the rock, crudely but undeniably, were 4 tally marks. 4. Alara, Clara, Sarah, Lily. He felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't just a hideout. This was the killer's sanctuary, a place where he commemorated his monstrous acts. The discovery of the cave and the tally marks sent a jolt of urgency through the investigation. Miles knew they were close. The killer was local, meticulous, and had been operating in Shadowbrook for decades, a phantom predator. Forensics confirmed the rose petal was indeed from a white rose and showed signs of significant age. They also found trace elements of a rare pollen, unique to a specific type of flower that grew only in a few isolated patches on the Oregon coast. Miles remembered Silas Blackwood mentioning Alara Vance's fascination with local flora. He returned to Silas, feeling a growing certainty. Silas, the flower you told me about, the one Alara liked. The one that grows by the cliffs. Silas looked at him, his sea-glass eyes narrowing. The star of the sea. Delicate, beautiful. Grows in the harshest conditions. Miles pressed. Does it grow near the lighthouse? Or any of the old trails? Silas nodded slowly.
A few patches,
Down by the old logging trail and near Miller's Point. Miller's Point. That was where Clara Jenkins' body had been found. And Lily Thorne's. Miles felt a chilling revelation. The killer wasn't just leaving a rose. He was collecting them from specific, meaningful locations. And the Star of the Sea pollen connected directly to Alara Vance. He remembered Frank's dossier on Adam Thorne. Fishing offshore, alone, for his alibi. What if Adam wasn't fishing alone? What if he was fishing for something else entirely? Miles decided to speak to Adam again, this time with a more direct approach. He found him at the bait shop, cleaning fish. The smell of guts and scales filled the air. Adam, Miles began, his voice low and steady.
We found something.
A place. A cave near the cove. Adam froze, the knife clattering to the floor. His face went ashen. What are you talking about, detective? The tally marks, Adam. 4 of them. And a white rose petal. Old enough to be from Alara's time. A petal from the Star of the Sea. Adam backed away, bumping into a shelf of fishing lures. You're mistaken. I don't know anything about a cave. His voice was thin, reedy, stripped of its earlier confidence. The red rose, Adam. Lily's rose. It was a deviation. Why? Adam's eyes darted around, like a cornered animal. I don't know. Miles moved closer, his gaze unwavering. You dated Alara. You had an uncorroborated alibi. You knew these trails intimately. And you were connected to Lily. Adam suddenly lunged, pushing past Miles and bolting for the back door. Miles, reacting quickly, tackled him. They struggled amidst the overturned buckets and scattered fishing tackle. Adam, stronger than he looked, fought with a desperate ferocity. Miles finally managed to pin him against a wall, his arm twisted behind his back. Talk to me, Adam. Tell me about the roses. Adam gasped for breath, his face contorted in a mixture of fear and rage. He made me. He said he'd hurt Lily if I didn't help him. Miles stared, shocked.
Who?
Who made you? Adam's eyes, wide with terror, suddenly fixed on something behind Miles. He's always watching. Always. Before Miles could turn, a heavy blow struck him from behind, sending him sprawling to the floor. Darkness consumed him, the smell of fish and fear the last sensations before unconsciousness. Miles awoke to the throbbing pain in his head and the chilling reality of his situation. He was in the cave, bound and gagged, the damp cold seeping into his bones. Adam Thorne was there, his face bruised and terrified, also bound. And standing over them, illuminated by a single, flickering lantern, was a figure Miles had never expected to see. Silas Blackwood, the old lighthouse keeper, his sea-glass eyes glinting with a terrifying intensity, held a small, antique pistol. You are close, detective. Silas's voice was calm, almost conversational, yet laced with a chilling undercurrent of madness. Closer than anyone in 25 years. Miles struggled against his bonds, his mind racing. Silas. All this time, the lonely old man in the lighthouse, a constant presence, a silent observer. Adam here, he was a good helper, Silas continued, a twisted smile playing on his lips. He loved Alara, you see. So easily manipulated. I promised him I'd protect Lily if he helped me, just as I promised him I'd let him grieve Alara in peace if he kept my secret all those years ago. Adam whimpered, tears streaming down his face. He threatened them, Miles. He knew about my family. Silas ignored him, his gaze fixed on Miles. You saw the tally marks, didn't you? My collection. Each one a perfect blossom, plucked before they could wither. Alara, Clara, Sarah, they were all so exquisitely fragile. Why, Silas? Miles forced out, his voice muffled by the gag. Silas sighed, a sound of profound melancholy. They were meant for me, detective. Each one. They had a light within them, a beauty that deserved to be preserved. But they would have left Shadowbrook. They would have forgotten this place, forgotten the sea, forgotten me. I couldn't allow that. He gestured around the small cave. This is my sanctuary, where I could truly appreciate their beauty before returning them to the earth, like seeds waiting to bloom again. The roses, the final testament to their perfection. Miles understood now. It wasn't just murder. It was a perverted form of preservation, a twisted gardener collecting his prized specimens. Silas Blackwood wasn't just the lighthouse keeper. He was the keeper of Shadowbrook's darkest secrets. Lily, she was a surprise, Silas admitted, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. Adam's niece. I had to make an example, remind him of his loyalty. The red rose, a symbol of betrayal. Adam thought he could stop me, that he could protect her. Foolish boy. Silas then did something that sent a fresh wave of dread through Miles. He pulled a small, silver locket from beneath his shirt. It was old, tarnished, and etched with the initials EV. Alara Vance. She was mine, detective. Truly mine. The others were attempts to recapture that first, perfect bloom. Miles realized the horrific truth. Silas wasn't just collecting beautiful women. He was collecting Alara, over and over again, in a desperate, deranged attempt to bring her back, to possess her eternally. The limp, Miles managed to say, his voice strained. The eyewitness, he saw a limp. Silas chuckled, a chilling sound.
Ah, yes.
A convenient distraction.
A ruse.
I am older now, and my knees are not what they once were. But in my prime, I was swift and silent as a ghost. He pulled a small vial from his pocket, filled with a clear liquid. Sedative. Just enough to ensure a peaceful transition. No struggle, no pain. Only serenity. Miles's heart pounded. He had to do something. He glanced at Adam, who was staring at Silas with a mixture of horror and resigned despair. The ghost stories, Silas. Miles pressed, hoping to distract him. The Shadowbrook siren. Was that you? Silas smiled, a genuine, almost wistful expression. Alara. They called her that sometimes. She loved the sea too. She would hum, standing by the cliffs. I heard her. And now, sometimes, in the fog, I hear her again. He looked out towards the cave entrance, where a faint gray mist was beginning to creep in. The fog is my friend, detective. It hides my work. It shrouds my secrets. Miles suddenly noticed a glint of metal near Adam's bound hands. A loose fishing hook, dropped during the struggle in the shop. He subtly shifted his body, trying to catch Adam's eye, to convey a silent message. Silas, oblivious, was lost in his reverie. Such beautiful endings. Each one a masterpiece. And you, detective, you will be the final bloom. The one who truly understood. He took a step towards Miles, raising the pistol. Suddenly, Adam let out a guttural scream, lunging forward with unexpected force, his hands, still bound, flailing wildly. He had managed to snag the fishing hook on his bonds, tearing at them with desperate, animalistic energy. Silas, startled, fired. The shot echoed deafeningly in the small cave. Adam collapsed, a red stain blooming on his chest. Miles, seeing his chance, kicked out with all his might, catching Silas in the knee. The old man cried out, stumbling backward, dropping the pistol. Miles, fueled by adrenaline, began to tear at his own bonds, his fingers numb with cold. Silas, recovering, lunged for the pistol, but Miles was faster. He kicked it away, sending it skittering deeper into the cave. A fierce, desperate struggle ensued. Silas, despite his age, fought with surprising strength, fueled by decades of suppressed madness. Miles, still groggy from the blow to his head, struggled to gain the upper hand. They grappled, falling against the damp cave walls, the flickering lantern casting grotesque shadows. Miles finally managed to pin Silas, his hand wrapping around the old man's throat. It ends now, Silas. Miles gritted out, his voice hoarse. Silas's sea-glass eyes were wide, filled with a primal rage, but also a chilling sense of peace. No, detective. It never ends. The garden, it always needs tending. Just as Miles tightened his grip, a piercing, mournful sound cut through the cave. The lighthouse foghorn. A deep, resonant bellow that seemed to shake the very foundations of the cliff.
Silas's eyes widened further, not in fear, but in a strange, otherworldly recognition. He looked past Miles towards the cave entrance, where the fog was now swirling in thick tendrils. "Ilara," he whispered, a beatific smile spreading across his face. "You've come for me." Miles, confused, turned his head. He saw nothing but the swirling mist. When he looked back at Silas, the old man's eyes were still fixed on the fog, his expression serene, his body slack. Silas Blackwood, the rose collector, was dead. Miles sat on the cliffs overlooking Shadowbrook, the ocean wind whipping around him, 2 weeks after Silas Blackwood's death. The town was still reeling, the truth of the lighthouse keeper's monstrous secret tearing open old wounds. Adam Thorne had survived, albeit with a long road to recovery, and was cooperating with authorities. The cave had been meticulously processed, yielding a trove of chilling evidence, including personal effects of all 4 victims. The case was closed. The Shadowbrook siren finally silenced. But Miles couldn't shake a lingering unease. He thought back to Silas's last words, his serene expression as he looked into the fog, calling out Ilara's name. A madman's final delusion, surely. Yet, as he looked out at the familiar, haunting expanse of the Pacific, he saw it. Just at the edge of the cliffs, where the mist curled around the ancient stones, a pale, shimmering figure seemed to materialize for a fleeting moment. A woman, her form indistinct, looking out towards the tumultuous sea. Miles rubbed his eyes, convinced it was just the sea spray, or the lingering trauma of the past few weeks. He thought of Silas, alone in his lighthouse, watching the fog roll in, seeing what no one else could. He remembered a conversation with Frank years ago when the original case went cold. "This town has a way of holding on to its debt, Miles. Especially the ones who never got justice." Miles stood up, the wind tugging at his jacket. He was a detective, a man of logic and evidence. But here in Shadowbrook, under the watchful gaze of the old lighthouse, he couldn't deny the chill that prickled his skin. He looked back at the lighthouse, its beams still sweeping across the darkness, a lonely sentinel. And he wondered, was the Shadowbrook siren truly silenced? Or was Ilara Vance, the first bloom in a madman's garden, still waiting, a ghostly sentinel on the cliffs for the next fog to roll in, keeping watch over the dark secrets that still lingered in the cursed town of Shadowbrook?